It is the pre-dawn hours of April 18, 1955, and inside a Princeton hospital autopsy room, the brain of Albert Einstein has just been lifted from his skull, and the man holding it is about to steal it. This single act of theft would trigger a bizarre, decades-long odyssey across America, all driven by a single obsessive question: could the physical tissue of a brain, this specific brain, hold the secret to genius itself? By 1955, Albert Einstein was not merely a scientist. He was a global icon, a figure of secular sainthood. His face was synonymous with intelligence. Aware of this intense fascination, Einstein was deeply paranoid about his body becoming a morbid relic. He left explicit instructions for his remains. He was to be cremated, and his ashes scattered in secret to discourage idolaters. The world was meant to have his ideas, not his bones. But on that April morning, the pathologist on call, a man named Thomas Harvey, decided the world's needs, and his own, outweighed a dead man's final wish. He saw a unique opportunity. To Harvey, this was not a man's organ. It was an unprecedented scientific specimen. In a catastrophic breach of ethics, he performed the craniotomy, took the brain, and simply walked out. For over 20 years, the world would have no idea where it had gone. Harvey convinced Einstein's reluctant son, Hans Albert, to grant retroactive permission for a study, promising the brain would be used for legitimate science, and that the findings would be published in esteemed journals. It was a promise he would fail to keep for decades. At first, the work seemed professional. The brain was infused with formalin for preservation. It was photographed from every conceivable angle. Then came the dissection. Harvey sectioned the brain into 240 distinct blocks, each one embedded in a waxy, rubber-like substance called celloidin for stability. He created 1,200 microscopic slides from the tissue. This was the raw material he believed held the code to unraveling transcendent intellect. But then, the real science stopped, and the strange journey began. He took the preserved blocks and placed them in 2 large glass mayonnaise jars. He put the jars, filled with alcohol, inside a wooden cider box. For the next 40 years, this box would be his most treasured and most cursed possession. Harvey's life became a strange pilgrimage. He moved from New Jersey to a lab in Philadelphia, then to Wichita, Kansas, where he worked as a medical supervisor in a biological testing lab, keeping the jars hidden in that same cider box under a beer cooler. He moved to Weston, Missouri, practicing medicine until his license was revoked in 1988. All the while, the brain of Albert Einstein was with him. It was in his car, in his closet, a constant, silent passenger on his descent into obscurity. The obsession had a catastrophic human cost. Harvey's marriage collapsed, his career was in ruins, and the scientific community largely forgot about him and his stolen prize. He was a man possessed by an idea, guarding a relic that had brought him nothing but ruin. He sent a few slivers out to other researchers over the years, but the grand, definitive study he had promised never materialized. The secret of genius remained locked away in the jars. The story re-entered the public consciousness in 1978. A curious reporter named Stephen Levy tracked Harvey down in Wichita. Levy's article, titled "I Found Einstein's Brain," exposed the bizarre saga to the world. The man who held the key to one of science's greatest minds was a disgraced pathologist living a quiet life in Middle America. The revelation turned Harvey into a minor celebrity and the brain into a piece of macabre Americana. In 1997, he undertook one final absurd journey, driving from New Jersey to California with a journalist, the brain riding in a Tupperware container in the trunk. After decades of silence, the first supposed answers finally began to emerge. In 1985, a paper published in Experimental Neurology made a startling claim. Neuroscientist Marion Diamond from UC Berkeley, using 4 small sections provided by Harvey, reported that Einstein's brain contained a significantly higher number of glial cells. Glial cells support neurons, and the implication was electric. Perhaps his neurons were better fed, capable of higher metabolic activity, allowing for more intense thought. A decade later, another study in The Lancet claimed to have found a more profound anomaly. Researchers studying Harvey's original photographs of the whole brain noted that a specific anatomical furrow, the Sylvian fissure, appeared to be truncated. This alteration had supposedly caused a region of the parietal lobe, an area associated with visual spatial cognition and mathematical reasoning, to become larger. The theory was that this unique brain structure allowed for the kind of thought experiments that defined Einstein's work. This let him visualize complex physics in his mind. Later research would claim his brain was 15% wider than average. It also allegedly possessed a uniquely complex pattern of convolutions in the prefrontal cortex, the seat of planning and abstract thought. For a moment it seemed Harvey's desecration had been justified. The physical source of genius had been located. But this narrative was a scientific illusion. Almost as soon as they appeared, the claims began to collapse under scrutiny. The 1985 glial cell study was criticized for its fatally flawed control group. The 11 brains it was compared against were from younger patients. They had also been preserved differently. Furthermore, scientists argued that an abundance of glial cells could be a result of aging, not a cause of genius. The entire finding was likely statistical noise. The missing fissure theory fared no better. Subsequent critiques pointed out the extreme danger of diagnosing profound functional differences from post-mortem photographs alone. Brain anatomy has wide natural variations. Many ordinary individuals share the traits that were supposedly unique to Einstein. There was no way to prove his brain wasn't just a normal, if slightly unusual, specimen. Neurologist Terence Hines of Pace University became a prominent critic, arguing that all the studies were plagued by confirmation bias. Researchers were hunting for differences, and in the convoluted folds of a human brain, they were guaranteed to find them, whether they were meaningful or not. The science was a house of cards built on a foundation of wishful thinking. In 1998, Thomas Harvey, now an old man, finally relinquished his burden. He drove the remaining pieces of the brain back to Princeton. He handed them over to the chief pathologist at the University Medical Center. His 40-year odyssey was over. The quest to find genius in a jar had ended in failure. Today, the 170 remaining blocks of Albert Einstein's brain are on display. Along with 1,200 microscopic slides, they reside at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, a testament to this strange and cautionary tale. The story of Einstein's brain is not a story of discovery, it is a story of obsession. It reveals the perilous line between scientific inquiry and ghoulish fascination. Thomas Harvey violated the final wish of a great man. He sacrificed his own life and reputation for a prize that ultimately offered no answers. The saga is a profound lesson in scientific humility. It proves that genius is not a simple matter of weight or shape, of extra cells or missing grooves. It is an emergent property of consciousness, a mystery far greater than the sum of its physical parts. The world wanted to believe the secret could be held and measured, but the truth is far more complex and far more unknowable.